What's your soul purpose? It's what you came here to accomplish. It's also who you're meant to become so that you can make an impact by being yourself. We're all here to unlock our potential and create positive change in the world. Everything starts with you. One is not born into their purpose, one steps into their purpose. Were you born to do it? Let's find out together. Welcome to another episode of Born to Do It. Today we're going to be talking about mental health and recovering the pieces that we kind of lose in the process of living and kind of reconnecting with our higher self. And I'm excited to introduce to you Integrative Coach Avi Satz. Hi, Avi.
Hey, how are you, Stella?
I am doing great. I'm very excited about our conversation because we're going to be talking about some big topics like mental health, which require responsibility. But how are you doing?
Absolutely. No, I'm glad to hear that you're well, and thank you so much for inviting me on this channel. I'm so excited to connect with you. I'm into the conversation as well.
It's very exciting that we found each other on social media posting about spirituality and holistic living. And I just knew it. This is going to be a perfect guest. Even before I had the podcast, you just have this presence around you. Maybe it's your aura.
That's funny. I felt the same way about you. Like you've got really good energy, and so when we connected online, I was like, "Oh, cool! Like let's lean into this and let's see, like just what we're able to stir up together." And so I'm excited and really thankful for the opportunity to connect.
Superb. Okay, well,
I,
let's start. Let's look into what it means to walk the path of being an integrative coach. Starting with the first question that I think many people are wondering because it's coming up in conversations a lot more recently. Higher self. What is our higher self, and how do you tend to explain it to people?
Yeah, so I feel like, and I think one of the best definitions that I've come across for, understanding what our higher self is really it's our inner guidance without our ego and our personality
Mm,
coming into mix or jumble up kind of how we perceive things. And I feel like connected by creating connection to the spirit and really welcoming that connection, it allows us to better access our higher selves, right? To elevate beyond our ego, beyond our fears, beyond our worries, our
yeah,
protection mechanisms, right? Our traumatic experiences, and really attune towards what we're experiencing, what's in alignment for us, right? And in alignment with our spiritual principles and beliefs.
yeah, and that connection is going to change over the years. It's going to, sometimes we're going to be guided more to be more social creatures, and other times to retreat into that hermit zone so we can rediscover maybe our life path has changed a little bit. Maybe we've accomplished our potential in certain area. Now it's time to move to another area. But I like to refer to the higher self as the version of you that's already released more potential, that's kind of guiding you how to reach that next checkpoint because we can
Absolutely.
never truly know everything. I think humans have limited capacity to understand the greater plan, but as long as they're open to receiving that information, I suppose. When, sorry, go on.
No, no, I was just gonna say, I was just gonna agree with you. I couldn't agree more. Like, at least for me, my understanding and my own experience, it evolves over time, right? As
Hmm.
I evolve, right, and learn more, experience, grow, it does shift, to a certain extent. My higher self based on what's happening in my life. So I thought that was really great to hear you say that. I couldn't agree more with you.
When did you first begin that journey to reconnecting with your higher self?
Oh gosh, I would say at about 18 years old, to be honest with you. I was raised in a Jewish household. I was adopted from India, raised by a single white Jewish woman who just wanted a family. But I never really connected to Judaism at all at that point in my life for a lot of different reasons, I'd like to think. But at 18, but through a series of events at 18, I found myself entering 12-step based recovery
Okay.
and learn spiritual practices and principles on those lines. And that's when I really began to do and experience more inner work as an adult, right? Uncover and discover things and begin to connect and develop a spiritual connection that I hadn't had in the past.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great point of our lives when we transition from the school, from the structure, we need to find our own, create our own structure, and we begin to question things. We begin to re-examine the values. Are they the values that we actually want to stick to, or are these the values that our role models, our educational system, our teachers gave to us? And usually there is always a bit of a gap. And sometimes that gap is so huge that you almost feel like you need to experience that huge metamorphosis to uncover who you are, the true, authentic version of you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, again, I absolutely agree with you. So for me, it was coming into 12-step based recovery at my later teens, right, early adulthood, that I really began to take on and begin to explore that concept a bit more of our higher self, and even developing a spiritual understanding, at that time. An understanding of spirituality and creating a spiritual connection was a process for me.
Yeah.
At that time in my life, definitely. But something I'm incredibly grateful for.
100%. And I think we're all spiritual beings. So at some point, sooner or later, we're going to get these prompts from maybe the outside world, maybe our higher self guiding us internally. But it's going to be, come on, question a little bit deeper, research this area, examine this book, read this, watch this. And the more we refuse to do that, the more we're going to experience these tower moments, as I like to call them, these big issues that require attention. Like, oh, why is this happening to me? And it's usually because it's a call for you to look within, because the guidance is coming from within. But when do you think this connection was lost in society? From your experience working with clients as well.
That's a rough question. I kind of, I've got different feelings around that, to a certain extent. Like, I, I don't think it's lost for everybody, of
Hmm.
course,
Yeah.
right? But on a more but just generally speaking, like, the way I see the world, right, is I don't believe that the world is a safe place, and I don't believe that it's meant to be a safe place. Not nobody can guarantee anybody safety in this world, not even our parents, right? At the end of the day,
Hmm.
and we have a natural negativity bias that's designed to help protect us, right, and to help us survive, and then we have our own experiences, traumas. We just went through a pandemic, right, a global pandemic. I think we're still adjusting from that, and I think as there's more fear, insecurity, more, global crises, environmental crises, societal crises, I think that a lot of these things bring us back into places of fear, and I think that when we're actively active and when we're activated by fear, I think that pulls us away from faith and from spirit. When I act in fear, I'm not acting, oftentimes I'm not acting, most all times I'm not acting from my higher self,
Hmm. Yeah.
place of spirit. And so just generally speaking, from just that baseline context of this not being a safe world and this world constantly going through adjustments and change, I think those are contributors to how we as a society have began to disconnect further from the spirit, from spirit and spirituality that is all around us, like you were saying before.
100%. And the fear factor is something that's very primal. It's encoded within us. If we look back into the cavemen and the hunting, the predators, that whole process relied on the world outside of the cave being full of predators. So you need to protect what you have, and you need to remain in the cave. And if you think about Plato's myth of the cave, where exiting the cave actually is the path of enlightenment, because you start to understand the world around you. It's not, the more you understand something, the less you are afraid of it, because you're open to understanding different points of view. And maybe this is where the connection got lost a little bit. We reduced our learning. The education was closed off because we got scared of the knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps that's one way to look at it. But I'd like to challenge you, what if we're all here to restore some of that safety, especially the ones that are into spirituality and have restored their own connections?
Well, I mean, at least from my understanding, like when I connect to my higher self, right? From my understanding, I think that's a calling that many of us have, right? to be empathetic, to be sympathetic, to share and to receive others, right? And if we're experiencing healing and as a result of that, gaining better understanding of who we are, what we're going through, right? And being able to navigate that back into a place of higher connection and greater impact, right? Health and well-being. You know, I feel like there's in a sense a natural calling and understanding to maybe also be able to impart that onto our fellows and to at least be more compassionate towards them.
Yeah.
I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the next slide kind of sums up my thoughts that we're seeing this mental health crisis because we have lost the connection. And I think we live in a world that is designed to keep us in this place because it benefits. I mean, the more you operate from a state of fear, as you say, you're not acting from that place of fate. You're not acting from that place of divinity that is within you. You're acting out of character because traditionally we are rational creatures. The more we understand how the world works, the more we can form these well-educated guesses and calculated risks. But when we act out of fear, all of that logic just, I don't want to say goes down the toilet, but it just disappears from the thinking. You're just, the primal instinct kicks in, and over time it becomes easier to manipulate people. And I think what we're seeing right now is the result of that structured fear within society, fear-based programming, which is a bit unfortunate because spirituality actually helps us live with more gratitude. It helps us be kinder. It helps us be more loving and empathetic. And it's very easy for us to shift the script, especially looking at all these big words: burnout, trauma, wars, money, bills, stress. If we just added a little bit more joy into the everyday, and I think joy is a very good antidote to fear, because how can you feel the fear if you're laughing, if you're having fun, if you're, being close to somebody that you love? The fear kind of becomes smaller and smaller and smaller, and it just disappears.
Well, and I think you said a really important piece about education, right? Like, you know, perhaps also there's a greater disconnect, more globally, right? Or on society, more on like societal levels, because, when we're so wrapped up in fear or even that idea of surviving, right? Like,
Yes.
when we're just trying to get by day to day, and I know that there are plenty of people in the world right now who are just trying to get by right now, right? It's not easy for a lot of people, and when we're just trying to survive, the idea of thriving, right, is just a bit further out. It's not a priority to thrive. We're just trying to get by, and when we're just trying to get by, you know I think that we close ourselves, we can often close ourselves off from connecting to the spirit,
Yeah.
or I feel like that's a luxury to those who are more stable and in a more secure place in life, but in truth it's not. The spirit is here and for us, and the more that we're able to tune in and connect, and the more that I'm able to access my higher self, I truly believe I have a better chance of navigating this world, of being attractive to my fellows, of creating connections and engagements and experiences that can benefit me personally, professionally, right? And help me to excel and share and contribute more into this world.
100%, because you are also getting to know who you are, who you really are, so you can share that part of yourself, maybe parts of yourself, because we don't share the same version with every single human being. But the more we know the different parts that we carry, the more we can share them with the world. And if we don't know who we are, if we haven't taken the time, we're just the conditioning, we're just the expectations of others, or the labels others have given to us. And when we feel that disconnect between who we are and the labels that society has given to us, we tend to carry that what's the word, dissociation with us, even if we cannot pinpoint to it. But there's this gap between what people expect of us and what we expect of us, and it's just that explosion emoji. It's just, you reach that point of, I can't go on like this, and that's usually the point of either burnout or midlife crisis,
Mhm.
existential crisis. Just at some point, your higher self is going to wake you up and be like, "Come on."
Well, yeah, no, every single one of those things on the screen right now, I can absolutely identify and and relate to, and have had those experiences. And I was once one of those people who was living life in a way, a lifestyle, thinking pattern, process, fear-based lifestyle, where what I was doing was just not sustainable, right?
Yeah.
And so I was introduced to the inner work and spiritual practices as a result of, in a sense, hitting a wall, right? Like I had no choice but to redirect, because I wasn't in a good place, right? And so it was by need of intervention that
Mm.
I was introduced into this work, because I just wasn't living sustainably or in any way that was supportive of me or my fellows, right? So I received and was introduced to spirituality as an adult, coming through pain portals, right? Like many that are on the screen right now. So I can definitely relate to that. And so and in line with me, when I think about, again, us on a greater level, when we're lacking awareness, education,
Mhm.
understanding, right? I think these are also contributing factors to what can also disconnect us or prevent us from connecting greater spiritually.
100%. And when we lack the education, also, we lack an understanding of the many options that we have because we think, oh, we only have option A and option B because that's what's in front of us. And in reality, we have our imagination where we can create whatever we want to create. We can
Mm-hmm.
come up with these brilliant ideas as long as we believe, as long as we redirect that attention back to ourselves. But the current education system is not really teaching us to be the free thinkers that we need to be in order to thrive, in order to rise above the survival mode,
Mm-hmm.
which is, I suppose, where you come into the picture as an integrative coach and kind of a coach that helps people restore the missing pieces, I like to call it. To me, integrative coaching is about the self empowerment, teaching people how to be self sufficient. Because when we meet, I think all coaches, when they meet with clients, they find them in places where they have been wounded, bruised a little bit from life. And so they help them kind of believe in themselves to raise them up. But what does it mean to you being an integrative coach?
Yeah, so for me, I kind of explain it as, I support clients in achieving greater health, wellness, and improving their performance, right? And the term integrative coach means by integrating different practices, healing techniques, modalities into the coaching process, right? So, aside from being an executive coach, right, and being a certified professional coach, I'm also a certified hatha yoga instructor, a certified breathwork facilitator, right? I've been under apprenticeship and into spiritual apprenticeship this year. I'm studying under a Shipibo shaman as well with plant medicines, right? And what I do is I help clients and integrate these different techniques, practices, modalities, leadership skills, all towards addressing a lot of the things, again, that were on that previous,
Mhm.
our anxieties, our fears, our stressors, how we engage in life, and so integrative coaching is taking these different modalities and practices as they best serve a client and bringing them forth into our coaching process. And it's something I've been incredibly passionate about, and something I absolutely love. It's I mean, it's just it's doing the work that really supported me, right? And being able to share that and offer it to others. And aside from integrating practices and modalities, oftentimes, I'm not an expert in all fields, right? Oftentimes, if there's need for clinical care, psychiatry,
Mm.
psychotherapy, trauma healing, right? A nutritionist and a fitness instructor, or something for movement. I'll also integrate those professionals, right, and those professional services into the plan as well, and even act as a bit of a case manager to oversee everything to make sure that the right hand knows what the left hand is doing. The team model is working together to effectively support the client, again, from an integrative coaching perspective, right? Integrative practices into one individual.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a village to raise a child, but I think it also takes a village to support human beings in living abundantly because life has also gotten a lot more complicated than
Mm-hmm.
what it used to be, especially with technology and working from home and working with all of these social media platforms all the time. That has an impact on our mental health that is often ignored. And maybe some of the burnout and stress that we're experiencing is also because we're exposed to the technology a lot more than our parents. And our grandparents didn't even know the kind of reality that we'll be living in one day. And that
Well,
has a part, I think, with the integrative coaching, that it's almost like you're leading these people on the bridge that connects them to a more holistic living.
I think that that's ultimately where we're gonna where things are gonna revert back to in a certain extent.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always a calling for holistic living and just connecting inward or disconnecting from some outside stimuli as well, right? You're absolutely right. The digital age. I mean, and I'm a guy who is 100% supportive of technological advancements. Definitely not opposed to that at all. I just feel like it's on us to have the awareness, right, to be able to have a balance that best serves ourselves and our fellows, and to have the awareness to really understand, you know, um, how, when, why we're utilizing social media, taking advantage of technologies, right? And and ultimately we've got, I think it's on us to really be able to govern ourselves. And I think, again, on a global societal level, I think
Mhm.
that's going to be more challenging
Yeah.
for a lot, right? But yeah, no, completely. I mean, there's so much stimuli. I feel like with social media and technological advancements, there's just so many choices, so many options. I feel like we're being conditioned on the, subconsciously. If there's something we don't like, if there's something that causes us discomfort, we can just shift away, swipe to the right, swipe to
Mhm.
the left. Change the channel. Netflix has got 1,000,010 different shows, and if you don't like Netflix, you can go to Amazon Prime, and if you don't,
Yeah.
you go to Hulu, and if you don't like that, you go to Discovery and Disney Plus, and this, right? Like, there's so many different services. It's like you don't have to deal with your discomfort anymore. The way we're being conditioned, to a certain extent, with the amount of options and resources that we have. And on one level, for the immediate self, like for me, playing into my avoidance behaviors, that's amazing, right? But for me to just turn and avoid things that could actually, could be growth opportunities for me eventually,
100%. Yeah.
I'm going to find myself having nowhere else to turn again, right? And I'm going to be, and eventually I'm going to have to pause and regulate and process what I'm experiencing if I really want to experience deeper healing in this work, right? And growth and change, or to affect change, I should even say. But yeah, no, I mean, completely agree with you. I think that as we move forward, like I'm looking at, I'm trying, just beginning to, but I really want to have a retreat center, right? A place where people can come and unplug, where I can share my work. Other practitioners and healers can come and utilize that space. So I'm really looking at retreat centers right now and trying to figure that out. And as I think about the world ahead, I think there's going to be even greater calling and a want for many individuals to unplug and
Mhm.
come to that type of space even more than before. And I think that there's going to be a greater need for that within the next few years. I think there's a need for that now.
Yeah, especially with the World Economic Forum saying that AI is the future and the metaverse is the future. I think we're going to have a renewed appreciation for nature when we realize the damaging effect of kind of worshiping technology over humans. Once again, the economy is not placing the humans at the center, it's placing money at the center. And naturally, when we worship something outside of us, it always ends badly. We haven't learned that lesson in humanity. We're trying to, but we haven't learned it. And I think what you mentioned around distractions and the choice paradox is it's a great point to demonstrate that the education system isn't helping us by not creating free thinkers because we don't know how to self-regulate. And so that's why we're always looking for the next distraction. And all these platforms are so beautifully designed as well that it's just so easy to play with the buttons, play with the, even have these interactive experiences because there are some new ways to consume the content, play the games or make a choice, and then the actor takes a turn for the better or for the worse. So they're really going um, above and beyond with their creativity to get you hooked onto the platforms, which is amazing because they're using creativity, they're using innovation. But I think as long as humans don't know how to take a step back, look at the big picture, it's not going to end well for their growth and the overall growth and awareness in humanity. But
So
yeah.
self-regulation. right? Like
Self-regulation, yeah.
I love everything that you're saying. Like I'm speaking to 2 high schools in the next 2 months, to both families and also to the teaching staff. And one of our focuses is failure to launch, and the other focus is really talking about regulation skills,
Hmm.
right? And quite frankly, I think in the world that we're in today, and I think this should have happened a long time ago, I think a great practice for our youth and our children would be that before each class starts, simply put, not a big one,
Yep.
but before each class starts, some form of mindfulness practice or concentration exercise that simply allows children and the teachers
Hmm.
to
Yeah.
slow their heart rate, expand their breathing, activate their parasympathetic nervous system, and actually like regulate, right? Before class begins, a 5 minute exercise, anything like that, just to shift in between classes. Because I feel like if children can begin to understand and really get into those practices now, so they don't have to bring whatever energy, whatever activation, whatever emotional charge, right, that they were just experiencing, whether that was in between classes or being bullied in the hallway, right, or getting a kiss on the cheek from the girl that they really like whatever have you, right, like
It's a big
but just to be
emotion.
able to regulate, right, and get centered and then re-engage. Because when we do that, like you were saying, all those those primal reactions are fear-based reactions in ourselves, right? Fight, freeze, or flee. And so
Mhm.
one of the things that's happening when that happens is the connections to our prefrontal cortex, they begin to dampen and dissipate a bit, right? So we're not playing with our full brain function and capacity. We're not able to access new skills and information or reinforce new practices or teachings when we're highly anxious, and
Yeah.
so
It's like the
being,
brain shrinks. It's like
yeah, exactly. So even in classrooms, I think like the emotion regulation, self-regulation, nervous system regulation, so important for the youth and our children to begin to practice now. And I just feel like one of the best ways for them to do that is to stop and go in between
yeah.
activities. And generally speaking, in the way our class system is in the States, you know in between class periods, would be a great way to do that. Just stop and go. Because I think this is something I teach my clients, executives, young adults, families, all the same. Emotion regulation skills are often top on the list. In order for me to go further into the work with my clients and have them experience greater healing and performance.
Restore that inner.
Sorry, I keep looking down on the screen to the bottom right because that's where your face
I
is.
know.
Yeah, but I'm gonna try to keep looking straight.
That's okay. All the
Yeah.
recordings so far have us all
Yeah.
looking in the corner. But another way to regulate that energetic presence is also to shake things off. Imagine shaking the energy off and allowing it to pass the way that to flow, the way that it's meant to flow. Like my sister, she's in school and she always comes and she has these, very energetic outbursts,
Hmm.
not necessarily bad. They're just out of the blue, and even she doesn't know where they're coming from. And she's a water sign, so she's like a sponge for all the emotions around her, and she consumes them, and then she comes home and she has these outbursts. And I keep saying to her, you need to shake the energy off. Like when you're feeling funky, it's not even you, it's the energy that you've absorbed from other people. We're all energetic beings, but there's no education around that. We don't talk about consciousness and energy enough to be able
Hmm.
to have effective understanding, conversations, connections. But I think it's becoming clear to us that that is kind of the future. Because if we go to this slide, we've reached the point of complete breakdown as a collective consciousness, I think, or collective state. So now it's time to raise the collective consciousness by creating that positive change, and everyone has a part to play. I know we keep talking about education, but education is so many things. It's not just the first 12 grades, it's not just the college or the university, it's also education in the workplace, it's also all the coaches. It's even the different roles that you mentioned, the fitness instructor and the nutritionist, they can play into the education because it's continuous learning throughout your whole life.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I really appreciate what you said about maybe being able to shake it off or
Mm.
move move and allow our energy to flow or be released through us, right? And I was just thinking about that in a lot of different perspectives, right? Like we could take nervous energy, for instance, right? Like fear or anxiety and how that can stir up in the body, right? You're right. Like our calling when we get there is to fight or to flee. And those are actionable steps, right? It's actual movement. That's what we're being geared up to do. So one, for just from a scientific understanding of what we're experiencing in our body, to move is actually what our body is calling for to a certain.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and then when we interpret that feeling and what's coming up for us as energy, you're right, there's an opportunity to release. So what I really appreciate you want to highlighting that, because you're right, there's more ways to regulate than just to sit in lotus position or take
Mhm.
deep, you know what I mean? And so
100%.
cold exposure, movement, right? Like I work out every single day, right? And the type of fitness that I do on a regular basis, it doesn't burn me out. I'm not exhausted by the end of it, right? I feel better. I'm
I feel
motivated.
better after a run as well. At the end of
Yeah,
the day, if I don't do it, my energy just
yeah.
gets kind of, it's almost like sticky energy. It's like, that's not
Mm-hmm.
my energy. That's the energy of, it's like the burnt calories that need to be shaken off, energetically speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
thank you so much for also noting that. Because a lot of my work where I'm working with C-level executives, high performers in offices, right? And we have to learn, like, oftentimes practical ways that are acceptable within the workplace, right? Or within group environments to regulate and re-engage, oftentimes very quickly with high performers or business professionals, right? And so, we'll go through a series of different exercises that can allow someone to do that. But oftentimes, as you can imagine, um, I don't have tons of executive clients that are doing jumping jacks or yoga in their room or in their offices or whatever have you, in between clients or workspaces. But you're right, it's an absolute resource, and another way to regulate and to work with our energy flows and what's coming up for us. Absolutely. So thank you for noting that, because yeah,
I'm
feels
more
a
than
lot.
happy to bring it up. And it's quite interesting that you mentioned the jumping jacks, because in my previous role, before I started my own company and launched this podcast, I was working for a fitness software company. So we would literally be doing jumping jacks throughout the day and like all kinds of workout related prompts. But I think it's a mindset shift. When you understand that movement helps you navigate better through life and be more balanced, you start to incorporate it naturally. It's just your body guiding you, your body and mind in alignment. And this takes us to unlocking your purpose and seeing if you are operating in life in alignment. Spoiler alert, you are.
Ah,
um,
yeah, as you know, I was really excited for you to do this part, because this is something that I'm less familiar with. That this is the first year where I've really gotten into learning a little bit more about my chart, and so I'm super fired up for you to take me through some of this. Thank you.
Amazing. Okay. Well, we've got 12 signs, and we're not just one sign. We all have a blend of each of these signs within our natal birth chart, which means we have a bunch of energies attached to us that will show up, different faces that will show up, different reactions, modalities that will show up when we engage and interact and grow as we go through life. And we have 12 houses attached to the 12 signs, and they all kind of connect to a specific area of life. So that's gonna, the more you analyze your natal birth chart, the more you're gonna understand, oh, so this is why I'm behaving like that in that situation. Okay, now it's starting to make sense. And I like to start with analyzing your life path number, which is kind of guided by your name. And so in your case, we have three markers for leadership, not just one, not two, but three markers for leadership. So within the first name, we have the marker for leadership, that you're here to lead the way by paving a new path. So creating something that has never been created before. And you have all the creativity to choose how you want to position that. Then within your two middle names, we have creativity. So that is something that you have already kind of unlocked within yourself, that creative, playful thinking. And you're here to guide others to use their right brain to kind of restore that inner balance. Because as we know, the right brain isn't as much as used as the left one. So now we're kind of learning a little bit more about what it means to use the right brain. And it can mean a lot of things, from creativity to increased intuition and being able to just be more spontaneous in life. And you also have that. Sorry, we're going to say something.
No, no, no. Please, just agreeing with you. Go ahead. Please continue.
So we've got the leadership in the middle names, here to lead the way by empowering others, because you understand what it's like to be the leader of your own life, to be in the leadership seat of your own life. So now you can teach others how to do that. And finally, leadership in the last name. So here to inspire others through leading by example, which kind of connects very beautifully with the first name. But I'm going to connect all of this with the 6 markers that are from your natal birth chart to truly understand what it all means. Starting with,
Awesome.
actually, not starting. The full total path number leads to the path of transformation. So your whole life is all about transformation, change, growth, rebirth, and renewal. So naturally, everything that you do is going to be leading to that transformation. So everyone that you meet, they're going to be transformed after engaging with you, after interacting with you, because that is just kind of the assignment, the mission that you have in life. And then we've got the 4 elements that everything in the universe is made up of. And these 4 elements kind of manifest when it comes to us humans. The earth signs, they're more down to earth, as I like to say. They are all about integrity, identity, safety. The air signs are the ones that are the big thinkers. They carry a lot of information, they bring a lot of knowledge and intelligence, and that's their domain. Then we have the water signs that lead with emotions and empathy, and they're very great at making connections in the world. And then we have the fire signs that are all about purpose, passion, and confidence. And that's just something that comes natural to them. And if you think of all of these signs as the 4 operational layers, so earth signs, they kind of have very good understanding of the physical world. So that makes them very good manifestors. Then you have the air signs, which are kind of masterminds because they operate within the mental space, so they're very good at logical thinking, but also maybe even creativity, because the ideas come from that space. Then the water signs, they're very good with emotions, so that's their domain, and that's why they're able to kind of trigger these big changes of heart, a change of heart within other people. And then the fire signs, they are naturally more spiritually advanced, even if they don't investigate too much time. They're just connected to something within them that how fear is a primal instinct, so is the drive, so is that purpose that comes natural to us, that fire.
Mm-hmm.
um, but yeah, with your sun sign, which is who you need to become in order to accomplish your purpose, we have Aquarius in the 6th house. Aquarius is an air sign, so you are here to teach others, to share that information and knowledge around self-growth, around work-life balance, and around well-being. And you having that leadership in the first name, you're going to be leading with that information. You're going to be educating people and guiding them forward with that knowledge. And then your existing identity, the moon sign, is who you will act as if, so who you will act as if you cannot rise to your full potential in terms of making the most of this lifetime. And you have Cancer in the 12th house, so you have already mastered that transformational 12th house, which is all about spirituality, global mission, and self mastery. And you are kind of like very balanced within your own emotions. You're able to take a deep dive within the inner feelings and come out on the other side. That was nice and refreshing.
Mm.
So for some people, that might be scary taking that deep dive, but for you, it's like, oh, okay, great.
Wow.
Then we have the south node and the north node. So this is the correlation between what you're here to unlock and use as inner knowledge, because your consciousness has already kind of researched it. It's already there in terms of information. And your north node is what you're here to learn and become in the process. So kind of keep testing different approaches, keep experimenting, because that's data that's being added to your consciousness. So south node, Scorpio in the 4th house. Once again, it's a water sign. So your consciousness has mastered all the knowledge that comes around the subconscious mind and psychology, and the roots, one's roots, the home on an emotional level, so you can help others take that dive into the subconscious mind, because that is something that comes natural to you. Maybe you've had to find your way to this place where this comes natural to you, but in some ways it was always natural to you. You just had to unlock it. And your north node is what you're here to learn and become in the process. And as Taurus, being the earth sign in the 10th house, You're here to ground a lot of um, resources, I suppose, would be a good way. But because the 10th house is all about achievement and recognition, and you have a lot of leadership markers, and putting together the Aquarius in the 6th house, which is all to do with information around self growth. What you mentioned around kind of organizing these meeting spots, these forums where people can come together, this could be linked to you achieving in terms of leading people with the knowledge, but it could also be empowering the leaders of the future through that knowledge and helping them achieve, because that is in the 10th house. Either way, you have the manifesting abilities, they come natural to you. So it's just a matter of using that creativity to find that one big idea. And we have the rising sign, which is your communication style, how you're going to connect with the rest of the world. And you have Leo, which is one of the most fiery, passionate signs of all the 12 signs. So you're going to be leading with that passion and purpose and kind of helping people rediscover that self, that their own passion and purpose in life. But when it comes to your bonds, the people that you're going to be bonding the most, whether these are business partners, your closest friends, romantic partners, you're going to bond with them based on how much they transform and grow and change, because that is Aries in the 8th house. So because your path is that of transformation, the people that you're going to be running in the world, succeeding in the world the most, your most trusted advisors are going to be the ones that transform as fast as you, because it's essential for your purpose in life to keep being that transformational presence in the world, since you're
Hmm.
leading by example. And to put it all together as an overview,
Yeah.
we have for the sole purpose, you're here to be a self improvement kind of guru, guide. So teach others how to self improve, maybe self regulate, and empower the high performers in particular, because we have the 10th house in the North Node, and teach them everything to do with inner balance, because that's something that you have mastered. And so, for your existing identity, what comes natural to you and what you're here to pass on forward is you're here to guide people how to live with more joy and creativity, which is the joy that comes from the number 5 and the creativity. And then you're here to help entrepreneurs on their self mastery journey, coming from the South Node from in the 4th house. And finally, you're here to connect with people driven to change the world and help one another grow and transform, based on the Leo and the Aries, which are all fire signs. But if you take a look, you have all 4 elements in your natal birth chart. So you can
Wow.
shift depending on who you are in a room with to make sure that you can help them and meet them at the level where they are. It's a lot of information, but
It is a lot of information. I'll say though, I appreciate you taking the time to go over this with me. Thank you so much. It feels good, what you were saying, and how you were, about all of this. It feels good, and it does feel like it's in a bit of alignment for me. Like I love what you were saying, because as you're talking, I'm just going over what am I doing professionally? Where is my path personally? Where am I practicing spiritually? Right. And I'm actually putting out like this empowerment series right now, the Satz empowerment method. And I'm doing this beta test at the moment. And we'll be packaging this and bringing this to corporations and to leaderships, to leadership groups and different centers, and I mean the whole nine. I've got a big push for this over this next year, and it's been going so well so far, and the feedback's incredible, and it's all, and a huge part of this empowerment series is based on regulation,
yeah.
connecting to our higher selves, learning how to better process what we're experiencing, and then re-engage in a more attuned and clear way, right, with our fellows and our work and our goals and everything else. And so as you're kind of going through this, it sounds really beautiful and in alignment with some of the work that I'm doing already, which feels nice. And I love what you said about connecting with others and forming bonds. Also, specifically around the fire sign, because like purpose, passion, sharing, like those are the things that really do excite me when connecting
Mm.
with individuals. Like free spirit, purpose driven, people who are extremely passionate. I find that very attractive to connect with, you know.
I think it
So
mirrors back to you something that kind of motivates you even more to keep unlocking your potential. When you see somebody who's, inflamed within that fire, the spiritual fire that comes from being in alignment with your own purpose, you're like,
oh,
yes.
oh yeah, that is me 100%. Like I love that. It's inspirational. I want to feel that energy. It energizes me. Um, and often encourages me to go further or to work harder, right? Or to to connect greater. So yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. Hmm.
Well, I'll say that you're in alignment, but because there isn't a specific angle from your chart, you can come up with whatever structure that you want. There's so much creative freedom within this profile, but it has to do with leadership, whether you are leading in your own life or whether you're empowering the leaders of the future. Your path is closely linked to that leadership. And I think with the high performers that you mentioned, there's a link to that because it's the high performers that end up creating change in society
Yeah,
eventually. Even if they're working for big corporations, sometimes they break free and then start their own businesses, but it has to do with that inner drive and helping people channel more of that passion and purpose in whatever they're doing. And since your path is that of transformation, you're going to be transforming people's lives to everything that you do. And I think knowing what I know from my self growth journey, the more you commit to it, every single day you're advancing, you're changing, you're transforming it. And it's once you start that dance with the self growth journey, you don't stop dancing. You take a break, but you don't stop.
absolutely. No, I couldn't agree with you more. I'm having that experience right now. So yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. If we had, I don't know if we have enough time, but if we do, I was curious about if you could just share a little bit about what your chart, you know, shares about you. If you can give me a little quick synopsis of that, I'd love
Yes,
to
so
hear.
I can share my numbers and I'll give you some clue. So we've got my first name is S, so that's path of leadership. So I'm here to bring that, lead that change. And my sun sign is Capricorn, so it's very grounded energy. So master manifestors, I like to call it. Once it's in alignment with what I need to achieve, and it's in the eighth house, which is all around transformation. So I'm here to transform and shake up some structures as well. And then my middle and last name, they're both seven, which is the number of partnerships and collaborations. So the more I partner and collaborate with people and do exciting things with them, the more I'm in alignment, and the more I can channel my potential during this lifetime. And my communication, the rising sign is Gemini. So I deal with a lot of information, and my moon sign is Gemini as well. So all to do with the communication and information exchange. And the more I step into my purpose and my calling of kind of guiding the conversations and creating these spaces where people can exchange these ideas, the more I feel like it's not that the path is narrowing, but I can see more of the bricks being revealed to me so that I can take the steps forward. It's quite exciting. And my North Node is a fire sign, Sagittarius. So it has to do with that purpose. It has to do with that passion.
Thank you for sharing that. It's beautiful. It seems like you're in quite aligned as well. For lack of better words, as we've got leadership weaving through us, right?
Mhm.
Me, like my understanding of leadership and what I share and what I teach is that, well, in order to be a good or effective leader, right? Like we have to have and be able to demonstrate, especially in this world today, a bit of emotional intelligence, right?
Mhm. Yep.
And I think that we have, I think that we really do. We're not serving our fellows or leading our teams effectively if we're not accessing our higher selves, for lack of better words. And so when I take this chart and what you shared with me today, and I think about greater integration into my life, right, and how I can take some of what's going on up here and really bring this further into me. One thing that's just continued to kind of ring home is that is to continue spiritual growth and contribution,
Yeah.
for one, because again it allows me to better access my higher self, and I think that's really important for anyone in a leadership capacity, and again especially in this crazy world that we live in.
Mm.
And so I recognize like a calling and a benefit towards really staying in inner work practices and spiritual practices, to move, to be able to show up in a way that allows me to lead and make an impact. So
Yeah,
that
and
was
I
just
think,
coming up and thinking about this.
yeah, and I think with your profile, because you have leadership by example as well, the more you improve your life, the better leader you're going to be by default. It's just very much in alignment. And we're still living in a world where the leaders are very operating from their masculine energy, operating from a very logical, oppressive presence, and we still have that idea that we need to look up to the leaders for the answers, when in fact the leaders are here to empower the people that are looking up to them so that they can raise them up to their level, they can raise their understanding, their awareness, their knowledge. And I think this is, we've got a long way to go before we understand that the power is within us and we need to reconnect with that power. So the self-empowerment comes into the picture once again, that nobody has an answer for us for our own path. We need to look within. And so when I talk about the natal birth chart and the purpose, one is not born into their purpose, one steps into their purpose. And what you mentioned around continuing your spiritual growth, I think is key. It's continuing that self improvement journey, self growth journey, and committing to those daily practices because they are what's making room for your potential to be channeled. Because if you're operating from the old conditioning, you're operating from an outdated version. And it's not something that people are comfortable with, I would say, at this point, that to change as fast. But the people that change the fastest are the people that are the most innovative because they're just constantly shifting their energy and channeling more of that potential. And that's where the ideas come from their connection with their higher self, from their connection to source. And the people
Mm-hmm.
that are committed to that self-growth journey, I think the universe sees their commitment and honors that with these fresh ideas, with these opportunities. And this is the element of, I don't know where I'm going, but it feels in alignment. So I'm going to take that step.
Right. That. Yeah. No, absolutely. Hmm. I love that perspective. Thank you.
I mean, I've absolutely enjoyed our chat today. You've mentioned some really exciting things that you're working on. Is there something to look forward to this year? Something that, people that are watching this episode can get engaged with, join with?
Yes, a couple things. One, I've got this online series called the Satz Empowerment Method. It's currently in the middle of being beta tested right now. I'll be doing it once more towards the end of the year. I'm also a big burner, right? Like Burning Man. I don't know if you're
Right?
familiar, right? Like I'm a
Yeah, yeah.
big and Burning Man has a lot of aspects to that community and that cultural experience that I love, right? Everyone comes together and erects a city out of nothing, right? In the middle of the desert.
Mm,
It's not based on one person doing this or focusing on themselves. It's really about the betterment of the group, right? And being selfless and being able to connect. And then the freedom, the community, the expression, the spirit, the connection, all of that are they're just keywords that I love, right? And Burning Man is such an amazing space to jump in and to feel free and to be in this great container where you just get completely immersed in things that like for me, speaking personally, things that I absolutely love. And I'm actually creating a community and a group uh, to, in a sense, kind of keep that Burning Man spirit alive when we're back in the default world, right? But how do I stay connected with my spirit, with sense of
yeah.
freedom, playfulness, joy, connection, right? Creating time, space, and energy for the things that drive me and turn me up. And again, it brings us right back to a lot of these integrative practices that can better support our health, well-being, happiness, and healing, right? And so I'm also putting together a community for people who are involved with Burning Man or want to be involved that understand these concepts and want to hold them closer and experience more of that as they're going through their day-to-day life and not in this 10-day immersive environment where they're
Take a break and then come back to, yeah.
yeah, how do we actually get more of that here in this default world of ours where again I think it's calling to again the spiritual practices and the inner work practices as well.
Out of curiosity, have you met people at Burning Man that are dealing with the big negative words that were mentioned in that blue slide. Let me see if I can find the mental health. Or are these people that are already kind of more connected to their higher self and more in alignment with their spirit?
I would like to say both. I mean,
Okay.
it's a pot out there, and there are plenty of people who are in the inner work and have amazing awareness and attunement and are actively engaged in practices. Like there are tons of amazing camps that are based around mindfulness, healing, performance, and growth. And then yes, I think it's safe to say that there are. Yeah, I've met plenty of people who are also actively being afflicted by some of these things.
Mm,
You know, that they're dealing with, and being at Burning Man is a container where maybe you don't have to play into that, or maybe you can push that away because you're in this great
yeah.
environment and there's plenty of stimuli and plenty to distract yourself with. But the other side of this, again, the healing side, is to be more resourced, right? And to figure out how we can be, um, and progress forward in our lives.
It's to me, Burning Man is almost like symbolic of the shadow work, and depending
Mm-hmm.
on how where you are on your journey with the shadow work, it could be very surface level. It could be just
Yeah.
kind of like burn the surface wounds, or you can dive deep and just kind of allow yourself. Because if you think about the spiritual awakening and the spiritual ascension processes, you walking through the spiritual fire, you have to face your deepest fears, your deepest traumas and wounds, and kind of make peace with them and say, I
Right.
understand why that happened, when it needed to happen, because it made me who I am today, or it revealed to me something that I can use to help those that have been through the same life lessons. Let's call them life lessons.
Yeah, no, completely, completely. And there's so many energies in the elements out there. There's energies in the connections, there's energies in the spirits. And so when I think about that Burning Man, I think about the amount of energies,
Mm.
that actually take place there, the opportunity to connect and heal and grow. Um, I think there's such a great potential and calling for us to take that and to figure out and work towards how we can experience more of that. On a mass scale, in our lives and for our fellows.
100%. And that's something we talked about in the last episode with Jennifer, that we often think about spirituality as the light side. We often think about it being love and light and positivity, but there is an integration of the darkness that's within us as well. I mean, we are of the world, so we naturally have the dark and the light. So we need to be able to integrate both of them and be balanced within those, within the duality. Because when we explore the light and we explore the love, it's all lovely and amazing. But if you start to look at the origins of some of the most famous fairy tales, they're much darker than what we're,
Oh yeah,
learning. Yeah.
learned.
So, but that's a reflection of, we've already done the primal experience of leading with fear. We've already seen the stories where people are being destroyed and killed and abused, and it's time to rise above that, keep spiritually ascend, so we can be these humans in the path of evolution where we can co-create and collaborate and grow side by side, and leave that aspect of the dark, remain at the low level frequency. We've outgrown that.
Yeah,
Lead
exactly.
with joy, integrated joy.
I I think that's a beautiful ending note right there, right?
I think so
Integrate with
too.
joy. See if we can work towards integrating with joy or grace, right? As
Mhm.
forward, how can we access that?
Yeah.
It's a practice and an intention that I've been doing and something that I continue to try to do, right? And will continue to try to work on myself, integrate with joy, to experience more grace. I love it.
Well, thanks for being part of Born to Do It, Avi. Really enjoyed our conversation. And I will link to your programs. Just send me all
Yeah.
the links and I'll put them in the YouTube description. And if anybody has a question for you, I'll I'll make sure that you receive that question, or I reconnect them to your social media links. Thank you for your time and
Yeah.
for being
Oh,
part of the podcast.
thank you. This was so much fun and so great to connect with you again. Thank you for your time, and yeah, I hope you have a fantastic day, Stella.
Thanks, Abby, and thanks to the universe for connecting us.
Right? Yeah, seriously. You've got a friend in Los Angeles. If you're ever in town, come my way. It'd be great to connect.
Thank you. I'll keep that in mind.